Hey, everybody. Jacob from the future here. I just want to give you a heads up. We ran into a ton of technical issues with this episode. Audio-wise, everything is actually really, really good. So shouts out to both Kyle and Jay for getting this all together. Video, it's going to be some weird sync issues from time to time. There's a couple of spots where it cuts out. Really, really sorry. I mean, this is kind of out of our control. And honestly, we just didn't want to re-record the entire thing because that sounded weird. So please bear with us. There are a couple of spots where it's missing a bit of audio here and there, but you know, if you work off Zoom calls and Google Meets for a living, you're probably used to it. So enjoy the show.
Yeah, just wear the beanie. That's it.
That's pretty solid. I feel good about that. That's a good way to start this. Get the attitude up high, you know.
You would trade 2 J's if you could become Wolverine.
Where are you getting all this information?
I definitely heard some rumors about it. Are you still going? I get goosebumps thinking about it because it's like you can hear them get
the car. I was going to qualify and I was going to drive it out the racetrack.
Just threw the hood over the ditch and
longest employee of NOS.
You did some digging there, huh?
I'm super pumped to meet as many people as I possibly can this year, especially those that are smart enough to use FD Podcast at checkout, save themselves a couple of dollars on their FD tickets. Those are the people I really want to meet, mostly because I get a ton of high fives, a bunch of thank yous. A couple people tried to give me some money for it, but nope, didn't take it. But yeah, if you want to be one of those lucky few people to save some money, use FD Podcast at checkout, save a couple bucks, see you at the event. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Outerzone, the official podcast of Formula Drift. My name is Jacob Gettins, and we have Mr. Matt Sopa on Europa. I don't mind that nickname, but I feel like there's more opportunity with the last. I mean, Sopa on Europa is not bad though.
Yeah, I mean it rolls off the tongue well, and but if you translate it, because sopa in Spanish is soup, so you're like soup on clothes, but it's spelled with 2 P's. It is what it is.
Interesting. Soup on clothes. Yeah. Are you a messy eater? Is that? Could we just say that?
That's just a literal, I guess, phonetic way of translating that.
it's soup on clothes.
Yeah.
I love it. Cool. Well, we're obviously here to cover Prospec stuff. I say obviously, but that's only if people have read the title and read the description and everything else. So, another big year Prospec-wise, big drivers list, a ton of rookies again. I think last year we had like 13 of them. This year we've got a ton as well. So, which I feel like that's kind of what happens with Prospec. It's meant to almost filter out people, as terrible as that sounds. Like, I don't think people realize how tough it is until they get there, and then they get there and they're like, oh, this is really hard, and this is a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. Even now though, it's a little less hard because they have the top 32. Because I remember we had a local driver, Schulte, his first ever FD round in Orlando, and he qualified 17th, and it was like we're on the opposite side of the country, and it was just kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, I remember Andrew Schultz. It's been a little bit since I checked up on him. I think he sold his Prospec car this year, didn't he?
A couple years ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It was a little while ago. Yeah. It happens. I mean, it's an expensive sport. I always hope when people kind of wash out of it that they just go back and do, still drive, but maybe not at that level. But I could see being difficult to want to continue once you've gotten to that level. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to go backwards, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, speaking of going backwards, the drift Appalachian stuff. I was commenting on Reese's post. I was like, it's got to be hard to go back to a regular track in the same kind of fashion. He's like, yeah, it's ruined. I'm like, I want to be ruined. So.
Yeah, it's so tough. What's the, why do I want to play on the swings when I've already been to Disney World, right?
Yeah, right.
I would assume that's how it feels, but yeah, I'm pretty pumped for Prospec. I wouldn't say that like I like Pro or Prospec more than the other because it's two very different things. Like you watch Pro because of how like kind of perfect it is, like just the highest level, whereas Prospec, you're almost watching to like see these breakout stories and see, like kind of predict what's going to happen later. Like it's so wild what happens in Prospec, but
probably
the driving's incredible.
Yeah, I probably use the term wild card too often because you never know when you have that. Also like to use sleeper cell within the roster because you just never know who could either fall on their face or totally disrupt the competition or series for that matter.
Yeah, because we've seen such a change over the years. We have drivers in Prospec that have been in Prospec since Pro 2 that have just run it and run it and run it, have kind of like progressed a little or just kind of stuck in mid pack. And then we have people that come in and just like dominate and then just move on. Like you just come in really quick. I feel like, although Ben Hobson obviously ran a couple years of Prospec, it just felt like he kind of came in, just crushed everybody and then jumped up. So I mean,
whether he was
Thorne was
you
kind
could
of the
see
same way too. Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely, speaking of sleeper cell, he was like, so soft spoken that, I don't think anybody saw him coming. He was just came along in this, 4-door BMW with a stock fuel tank and front rads, and that was that, cat in the hat.
Yeah, I think he just proved though that you don't need to overbuild the cars. Like it's just seat time and ability. Yeah,
which is one of my biggest advice I can give these guys is just keep it simple and serviceable.
Yeah, I think serviceable is probably almost bigger than not overbuilding. Like if you're going to overbuild serviceability as opposed to like overbuilding something. Like if you're going to choose to do, something, it's to make it easier to work on or faster in a timeout or something like that.
Yeah, overbuilding can mean a few things. Like if you're building it robustly in a overbuilt fashion, that's fine, but it still needs to be easy to work on because 5 and 10 minutes go by fast. Yeah,
you can't. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we've seen that's overbuilt incorrectly, where it's just incredibly difficult. It's like this, you pop the hood and it's just wild in there, and you're like, do you even know what these hoses do? Like, do you know where they go? Because if one of them breaks, like yeah.
Yeah, I'm a clean wiring guy. I do that, part of my business, and I'm not going to name any names, but man, guys got to clean up your wiring harnesses because sometimes they're a little less than stellar. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, spend money on spares. Like really, if it's between only being able to afford one differential, like or either getting a spare diff. Well, I feel like diff's not a good example, but like rads or something, as opposed to going rear rad. If you have the money to spend, buy 2 really good front mounts as opposed to spending all the money and time to make 1 rear mount.
Yeah, for sure. If something's a little susceptible to damage up there, it's a good idea to have an extra or 2.
Yeah.
Just like any arm or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same thing. Like it's better to have multiple arms as opposed to just like buying one kit and being like, oh, this kit's incredible, but you don't have any spares. And it's like, well, I'd rather you have a kit that's not as good, but you have 4 sets of them. Like that's what I would.
And we could go into the weeds of like all the chassis, which we'll get into with this roster. Like I feel like when I went through the list just a bit ago, I'm like, I think I can count on one hand how many S chassis there are. I was like, but there's like almost as many Corvettes. I was like, all right, so speaking of spares, you could have. Maybe some of the pit buddies will have spares as well, but can't really rely on that either.
Yeah, exactly, because they could be out too. So you got to be careful. But well, I mean, let's get into it. Let's get into driver's list.
Yeah, we got a huge list.
It's going to take a minute. So we're going to run through basically everybody that's signed up that we got info on, and try and give you guys a quick synopsis as to kind of some things that we've noticed, some information on them. It actually worked really well last year. What I recommend, if you hear a name that you don't know or that sounds cool or something that's neat, please go and follow them. I'll try and leave their Instagram in the show notes. We did this last year and it worked out really well. Just pick one person and follow that person for the season, especially if you don't know who they are. Let's try and get some support going for these Prospec drivers, and maybe, drop a comment in wherever you're seeing or hearing this, or jump over to YouTube and do it. Let us know who you're picking, and then we'll come back to this and let's see how everybody did. If somebody picks the winner, maybe I'll see about, let's do that. You know what? Jump on YouTube, leave a comment with one driver that you think is going to win. The first comment with the winning driver, I will come back, send you guys off like a hat, or I don't know, maybe Matt will throw some stuff in there too. You got some Make It Modular gear. We'll put a little prize pack together.
Yeah, we got some stickers. If you got a Mustang, throw some rack spacers in for you too.
Speaking of Mustangs, all right, let's just get right into it. Adam Heichman. So rookie driver, right into the Mustang, New Edge Mustang too. So I know we're going to ramble, or you're going to ramble on this one a little bit. Thoughts on running New Edge Mustang? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh man. So it's a 2-sided coin. So on one side, that chassis was designed in the 70s. So it's on a Fox platform, or what is known as a Fox 4 or SN95. It's basically everything from even a 1978 Fairmont can bolt into that chassis. So kind of puts things in perspective. So it might be like the oldest design chassis in FD at this point.
Interesting.
I think like what's the oldest S13? Like late 80s, 89, 88?
89,
But-
yeah, I think so.
So, but on the way the rules are written, since it's a new edge, it's 99 to 04, you can run. So all Fox platforms were a solid axle. I think it's advantageous. Solid axle, stupid simple, easy to set up. You can get a lot of grip out of them. But since it's a new edge, the 99 to 04 Cobras came with an independent rear end, so it's allowed to be bolted in because it uses all the same mounting points as the SRA did.
Right.
So another point to the rules is the new Edge Mustangs, or the 94 to 04 Mustangs, are allowed to use an aftermarket subframe, which I'm fairly certain that's the first time we've allowed an aftermarket subframe to be utilized in a chassis. Mainly because the Fox and New Edge K-member, as the Mustang guys like to call it, is one big stamped steel piece of garbage. Essentially, it gets in the way of everything because it's and they still have a divorced McPherson, so it has a shock and a spring, and that spring pocket is just all in the way of all the party things that you need to do when you're making angle. So you either got to cut it up and it's just an ugly project, or put in an aftermarket tubular subframe that gets rid of the spring pockets automatically, and then you just run coilovers anyway. So yeah, that's kind of my take. Yeah, it's without spending too much time on the first round here.
I knew this one would take us a minute though.
Yeah, I'm excited to see because we haven't seen a new Edge Mustang since Doug Vandenbrink. Man, he last competed. Last time I saw him was in Canada in 2017 doing, I think, Canada things. He wasn't doing FD Pro things. He was doing FD Canada things. So, and he had he didn't have his engine swapped or anything. I don't know what Adam has in his car. It's probably an LS, but which, as you can tell on my voice, how enthused I am about an LS swapping a Mustang. But that's neither here or there. Or, spare parts, right? Everyone has one, and so that's the last time we saw a new Edge, I believe, was Doug Vandenbrink, 7 years ago. So yeah, it should be interesting because that car's got a little bit. It's like by the time you add drift things to it, it'll be like the same wheelbase as like an S15. I know because I have a Fox myself, and it's extended a few inches, and it's probably in the low hundreds now. So they're snappy, like they'll come around on you real quick.
I think it's good. I mean, I like to see the progression of any chassis, especially ones that are around a little bit more affordable. I drove a 88 Thunderbird Turbo Coupe, which was basically a Fox body with like 6 feet added to either end. So they are fun. They hold angle well. I mean, it made me look like a hero because I could wall tap from like the next county. So it was great.
Oh, nice.
But anytime that we have a new chassis, and I'm always happy. So I mean, best of luck to Heichman. I mean, rookie coming in, different chassis. It'll be interesting, but I mean, the nice thing is the attention you're going to get. If you have something different, you're automatically going to get more people to your pits just to see what's going on. So that's obviously one of the biggest parts of this. So cool. Adam Napick, I mean, been around a little bit. Still, I think I talked about it last year. One of my favorite drifting videos of all time was very like almost Dirty Jobs Discovery Channel. They did the big voiceover in Orlando. Love seeing content like that. Sponsored from or by Donut Media. We didn't talk about the livery on Heichman's car, but another black and red livery. That might be the colors this year. I mean, pros seem to be a lot of white cars, so maybe black and red is our set of colors for Prospec. But yeah, always seeing him back with Donut is really cool. That's such a unique pairing, and I think it opens a lot of people's eyes to what you can do even at Prospec. The fact that he's working with Donut directly.
Yeah, Adam's always a super kind dude. Always got a smile on his face, even if he just chucked a rod through the block. Yeah.
He had a rough year last year, so 30th last year, kind of near the bottom of the pack. But hopefully we see a little bit better because I know he can drive well. I mean, there's no question there. It's just a matter of making sure everything lines up well and a whole bunch of luck, like a lot of luck. So
yeah, there's.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
Yeah. Do you want to announce the next one, since you added some notes in here about how to pronounce?
Oh, yeah, Alex Jagger. Because we got all mixed up on the radio as far as because we have Ole Jaeger and then there's Alex Jagger. So we got the moves like Jagger. It's pronounced like Jaguar is how the note for people that can't see that. I thought you might like that, because I always think of Top Gear. The Jag. That's another way I remember it.
Yeah, Jeremy Clarkson. Yes.
Yes.
The Jag. Yes. I was watching Clarkson's Farm the other night, actually.
That's a good. It's a good watch.
Oh, great watch. But yeah, Alex. Phenomenal driver. The kind of partnership with Forsberg stuff is interesting. Him and I had a really good talk about it, and I don't want to provide all the details of how that system works, but it's not the same way that let's say Ben had it with Odie. It's a little bit different of a system, but
yeah, I was
I'll let him get into that a bit more.
Yeah, because sure.
Yeah, it's just it's not
fully intertwined, but it's
yeah. There's connections, obviously. Yeah, there's connections, but it's not like he's racing for Chris Forsberg, which is something you could easily get confused. But took third in Atlanta last year, so we know he can drive well. Driving the Toge as well, speaking of that. So just another phenomenal driver, 11th last year. I do think he's somebody that could easily be a podium finisher by the end of the year. He's kind of due at this point. He's been in the game for a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like he's almost one of those guys that are slept on, because it's besides, if you didn't have the kind of Forsberg livery, if it was just let's say a red and black car, he'd sneak up on guys,
Yeah. He's one of the guys that outside of the livery kind of falls into that mid pack of drivers that can have a breakout event similar to Atlanta last year, but could also go out and, the first set of battles, and you'd be like, oh, right. Yeah. I forgot that's what kind of happened. So, but seeing his driving, definitely somebody who could make podium or get his pro ticket, if you will. Moving on, Alex. I don't think he likes Alexander. Licklighter, sticking with nonstop tuning, GT86. Had a rough season last year, coming in 40th overall. So that is a rough go.
Ooh,
but you can come back from that. Sometimes when you're down like that, that's all the motivation you need to drive better the next season when you have a rough season.
Yeah, it's just a little longer hill, but I think you're almost harder on yourself if you let's say you got 10th and now you got it's harder. That last 10% is always hard. In car builds, it's always the last 10% that takes the longest, and maybe that last bit is going to be a little more trying. But now it's we got more things to chew on, essentially.
Yeah, and you often learn more from your mistakes than you do from your victories, right? It's very easy to look back on an event and go, hey, this is why it didn't go well. When you win, it's super difficult to go back and be like, wow, we just did everything perfect. So what do we have to learn? Just do it again, right? It's harder to improve when you have a really good event like that. He actually had a really, really good episode on Circle of Drift as well. If you guys, no animosity there with that podcast. So if you guys want to go find out more, you definitely check that out. And then you had a note in here as well. Took a page from Forsberg and had a note on his car. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that was from that podcast. They released a little clip on there. It was like, oh, okay. Oh, and a note on the race car. That is okay.
Oh, I got you.
Little more riskier these days, I feel, but oh boy, yeah. You do what you got to do. If your passion's that much, get after it.
Well, I think a lot of drivers just put everything on the line to do this. We'll get into a few of them coming up here, but that's you do what you got to do to try and compete, right? That's it. If you want to. We've seen those stories all the time, looking back at Forsberg in particular, sleeping in his car, for that first event. Obviously he's come quite a ways since, having to sleep in his race car.
Well, a lot of things have changed, in those days where you would drive your pro car to the events.
Yeah.
You were not driving the...
Still see open trailers, so, that's not that far off.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
All right, moving on to another rookie, Alan Boss. This is actually somebody I was I'd called a couple of his runs over at Lake Erie Speedway. So I think honestly, like going through this, there's a couple of spots that are producing a lot of good drivers right now. Hot Pit Auto Fest is one of them. There's a lot of drivers in here coming out of Hot Pit, and then Lake Erie Speedway I think has 3 drivers now in Prospec that they're coming out of. So always cool to try and see some of those hotbeds of progression. But yeah,
especially with guys that come out of the Midwest. I'm also a Midwest boy, and looks like he's teaming up with Human. I don't know if that was like just an opportunity that they were together at the same time and took that photo or what. But I also seen Human in the background when he was getting his car wrapped. So I was like, something's going on there. Maybe they're carpooling.
Could be the case. I mean, you might as well. Like if you got somebody that's nearby. I think Alan went for the Midwest, moved down to Florida, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe there's something there. Drive up to Tennessee because I think they both use. I don't know for sure if they both use like AZ Rags for the wraps, so that could be why. But some sort of pairing there. But what I'm excited for is you guys calling out his team name, which is Yeet Fleet. I feel like there's a big opportunity for some fun there. So
unfortunately I've used Yeet. I think just in Atlanta last year because someone like just launched a bumper in the kitty litter or something. But it's funny because a lot of his other friends are part of that Yeet Fleet Drift Club, and one of them has a speaking of Fox, it's a Lincoln Mark 8 like turbo small block that he rips around. But that same guy's also made his name's John J. He put a like front wheel drive chassis on a 4th gen F body Camaro. Jesus. And drifts that thing, and it's amazing.
I'll take all the weird drift cars.
Definitely. Oh, we know.
Yeah.
Mine's in the trailer.
I can't get into it, but I can't say the exact reasons yet. But I'm currently in like liquidation phase of cars, so like I won't have a drift car for the next little bit. It looks like, and then I'm hoping in the next couple of months I'll be able to start acquiring again. But I'm so torn between driving something that's really, really easy to drive and then something ridiculous again. So I don't know.
Yeah, I struggle with that too because with the Fusion, it's basically just driving a long Mustang. And then I'm like, are you limiting yourself to like, should I just drive a regular Mustang or even, another chassis? Because these guys always claim the Zs and the S chassis are so easy to drive. And I feel like, am I struggling? I don't want to know how not to struggle. Otherwise I might be tainted.
Yeah, I've always joked that like I drive terrible drift cars just so I always have an excuse as to why I'm a terrible driver, right? Like if I ever actually jumped in a properly set up chassis, then I have to drive well, and if I don't, I'm like, oh, I'm the problem here, not the cars. So
yeah, dang it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm the problem. But next driver being Amanda Sorensen. So 29th last season, but only drove a couple of events. Curious how much she's going to drive this year. I mean, she's got an absolutely ridiculous schedule. So I know she's going to be in Atlanta. Outside of that, though, I don't know how, any of the rallycross stuff or driving Lamborghinis now or whatever else she ends up doing ties in with that. But I think that's going to be the big thing as to her performance over the season is just essentially how many rounds she ends up driving.
Yeah, it's probably one of the Sorensens just do just about every racing that they can get their hands on and have time for. It's what a schedule.
Yeah. I mean, given the opportunity, I'd do the exact same thing. Like,
why not?
Right?
My wife always bugs me. You should get into like rally racing, do something different than just drifting. And, I've even made a post of it. I'm like, I probably should listen to her more. And we were doing some rallycross on a sim last night for a friend's birthday. And I was like, this was kind of fun.
Yeah, it always comes down to a time thing, but I guess when racing is really like their only thing, you make the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, I do think obviously she's a phenomenal driver. It's just a matter of how much she's going to end up actually driving this year. That's really what it comes down to. Be cool to see her in pro. I would really like to see her get her pro card and make the jump just to, I mean, if nothing else, just to have her and her brother both in pro at the same time would be kind of neat.
Yeah, and it makes you kind of wonder with like the limited FDC time anyway, like how if she wasn't directions you'll want to focus and maybe potentially do better in the series if you have all these other things going on versus not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, agreed. Cool. Next up, Austin Mata coming in 10th last year. So a pretty good
Nice.
season for him. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like an OG, but definitely been around for a hot minute. Like he's had a number of seasons under his belt. I mean, another driver that I just not that I don't think of, he just kind of like blends in with it where you're like, oh yeah, like of course it's drifting. There's Austin Mata. Like it's of course he's here, right?
Yeah, it's like the S chassis. And then like, I feel like when he got into the game, in the FD game, like those liveries seem to like always trend to look at each other like the, I don't know what the design is called, but yeah, it does blend. It's an S chassis. It's got an LS supercharge. So to have him stand out is kind of difficult, but his driving style is definitely, I put him at how rowdy he can get. It would be like at a Ben Hobson level. That's what he kind of reminds me of, but maybe just not as controlled, or how do you say? Sometimes he doesn't reel it in enough, like Ben has maybe a better hold on.
Yeah, on his level of craziness. Like Ben gets crazy when he needs to get crazy, whereas Austin, I feel like can just like, it's similar to like a Chelsea Denofa that like once he's able to rein in that extra 10% that he's going over what he should be, it's going to decimate everybody. But that's such a crazy mental thing to get through to be like, oh, I'm driving too hard. I need to come back a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe with the new format seating, it'll allow these guys to shine in that way, because sometimes they shoot themselves in the foot in qualifying and then that's it. And
that's a solid point. That's actually a solid point. Yeah. It's the new format, I think, is really going to be wild in Prospec. Like it was cool in Pro. I think we've proven that it's a really neat system and that it can do some incredible things and really mix up the bracket. But I think in Prospec, it's just going to be chaos in the best possible way.
It is. And it's a good thing we start in Atlanta, because there's more room for error on the course. There's no pinball walls, and they can just sail into the desert that is the kitty litter or into the berms, and no harm, no fault. But I mean, there is that one wall when you're coming in the last quarter into the finish, which many have hit, like Jeff Donati and others. But it's forgiving in that regard. But it's also, tire conservation and everything, because that's a really long course. If you had to like lay that thing, stretch it out.
There you go. That's what it looks like right there.
It's like a half a mile? Yeah, it's just like a scribble there, but it's a double back in itself. It's really a really long course.
Yeah, it's a lot of track, and tire conservation is definitely key. Coming back up that hill, like you said, I know Kyle Mohan's taking himself out there pretty hard. Riley Sexsmith's taking himself out there. I think Human's taking a hit there as well. Like there's been a few. I mean, I remember Kyle Mohan moving the wall, like pushing the whole wall out by a couple inches. So yeah.
Matt Field took I think the first year he had his Corvette. He met that wall too.
Yeah. Cool. A driver returning. This is actually not a driver I'm super familiar with, but I know you've got you got some back and forth with, in a good way. But Brandon McDowell. So he hasn't driven in a few years, it seems like.
Yeah, he looked like he was just. Yeah, he looked like he was just taking a little break. As far as that little note there, where it's my fault where he almost hit me in Orlando. Well, what happened was did a restart. I'm pretty sure he was chased the chase car, and for whatever reason our restart lights weren't working. It was either raining or something, but no, it wasn't raining. It's just they weren't working. So we ran out there. I ran out there with a flag, like basically almost on course, like an idiot. And by the time he saw it, he like was 4-wheel sliding like back up towards start, and I was like, "Hello." But yeah, and so that was fun. And besides, in Orlando with like all the D beats, I'm always attacked with tires up there. It's always a real fun. Like, what's that? Frogger. Playing Frogger with the FD course and flying tires and wheels.
Yeah. It definitely gets hectic there. I mean, a lot of D beats from guys touching the wall and then it runs off. I mean, there's been a few wheels that have finished the event as opposed to the chassis. Those are always my favorite when they finish the course and cross and then the car's sitting, stuck on the side of the wall. But yeah, Brandon, driving in Juku, so that's a big step up. It's always cool to see. Juku usually has a pro car and a Prospec car, so it looks like he's going to fill that seat. He's worked with a ton of FD drivers as well, which is interesting, and I think that's such a massive benefit to knowing the back end of driving, understanding pit setup and how to operate and feed a team. I always talk about feeding a team, but like that's such a massive part of it is like the infrastructure of running a team. So doing a quick bio run on him. He's worked with a ton of different drivers over the years. So I think that alone could be the difference in having a really good season and not. But we'll have to see. I'm guessing he's running the same chassis, the Z, but I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, I would have to say so too, because they're just like transferring parts, and I found it interesting. He didn't even like take the wrap off his pro car, and he put just the panels on like his street car. So it's just basically like an imposter pro car.
Love it. Moving on to another rookie, Brian Wills, Nasty Habit Motorsport S14.9. Sick livery. Love the blue. Big wing. Another driver coming out of hot pit. So, we're going to hear a fair bit, today about different hot pit drivers. So, and then you had a note in here. Looks like supercharged LS. So pretty standard
from
package.
What I gather, yeah. Yep, another S chassis, which I think is only our second one since we're 10 deep here.
Yeah.
As far as I can remember, because who was it? We just talked about Austin Mata was like the other S chassis. But
the time of the S chassis might be over, man.
Yeah, there's maybe not. I'm sure you've seen Crick's Tube 40.
Yeah,
which is be kind of interesting. What kind of market that creates, which I think is amazing, because then you can. I don't know what the initial investment. I haven't talked to him yet about like what that kind of thing would cost someone if they wanted him to make for them. But it also maybe the initial cost might be a little more than a regular car, but it also is going to be light, and you don't need all the power. More power is more money, more fuel, more tires, and you can use a smaller tire. It's just going to be a cheaper car to operate, I feel. Yeah. So be really interesting to see what kind of evolves from that, his little brainchild. Yeah, pretty wild. I wish that's another driver I kind of missed. I enjoyed hanging out with him back in the day, but was it a Wednesday? Yeah. I think it was a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. It's usually like a Friday or a Saturday if I'm hanging out with a driver. It's very rare that I hang out with drivers on Wednesdays. It's just not their day, right? Yeah, unless we fly in early and they happen to be there. yeah, exactly. Although I am flying in on Wednesday for Atlanta, so maybe that'll be the day. Maybe that Dane Cook joke went a little over your head. No, I when people listen, yes, I got it. Yeah. I got you. I'm of the same generation, man. Isn't he Canadian? You're thinking Ryan Reynolds, which is like the better looking, version of Dane Cook. These days, Dane definitely. Yeah. Dane's looking a little rough, but yeah, rough around the edges, right? Yeah. And more Cook puns. Moving on. Chris Leonard. Another Mustang boy. So we're into what, 2 Mustangs Mustang now? Mullet, yeah. He looks like he's actually got a built Coyote in there now, so he's got a thoroughbred pony there, and switching all things on 4 corners from used to run JTP stuff, and now I believe he's on FDF, if I'm not mistaken. It's either that or Scotty. I can't remember, but one of the things that I've noted when he was on the JTP stuff, I felt like he didn't have enough tire or potentially power to like drive what that angle kit requires from JTP in his style, because it just needed to be harder and faster. But I feel like he was limited by the tire. And once he got, like, the car was super grippy up until at full angle, and then it just looked like he kind of struggled with it. So maybe it'll be improved. Not saying that JTP stuff's bad or anything. I have some of my stuff or his stuff on my cars as well, but it's definitely big boy stuff. I think you just have to drive it with JTP style, and if you're not driving the way that JTP drives, you're not getting the most out of it. It's going to be a detriment, right? That's a way better way to say it than I was trying to. I got you. Trip over it.
No, it's just, he builds his kit for his style, and if you happen to like it, cool, then there you go, right? I mean, JTP, I don't know him well, but he's not the kind of guy, from my understanding, that does things, he's doing it for him. He's like, okay, if it doesn't fit you, it doesn't fit you. Like, I'm not going to change what I'm developing to suit everybody. This is the way I drive, and if you drive the same way, this is perfect for you. So... Yeah, but there are very few humans in the world that drive like JTP does. So like,
he chased me once in Grid Life like 3 years ago, and he's like, "Yeah, it was good, but it was just kind of slow." I was like, "I have like a third of the horsepower, man. Give me a break."
yeah. How about we just chill a little? But yeah, another Mustang. I'm cool. I'm cool with it. I want to see more Mustang development, and I think just anytime, like I said, we're adjusting the chassis on grid and doing something different, and it's just better for the sport, and the trickle down is great, right? If somebody's developing something, that just means the guys at the grassroots level will get it in a couple of years when it's a little bit more affordable or is fully developed. So that's that
chassis is going to be that's what I call the American S chassis. I think that's in the notes. That's been out almost 10 years, and even the new Mustang, the 24s basically have the same underpinnings, kind of like what we were talking about with the Fox and the New Edge. So you get yourself a Rect or an EcoBoost one. It's an affordable chassis, and they're like really great out of the box. Not trying to plug, but I do make some parts for it for drifting. But it's like one of those things where people ask me about drifting Mustangs, even the older chassis, the S187s. It's like they might be a little heavier, but you don't have to do a motor swap to get the power, because you basically are going to find one that has enough power to drift from the factory. Yeah. Like when I don't see many K cars or KA cars in 240s much anymore. They're usually, 1 or 2 J swapped, or they got some push rods in there with a V8.
Yeah. The odd SR, but not that many people are much of a glutton for punishment. So.
Right.
Yeah, I know Dave Egan's like that is frowning right now if he's listening, because he believes the SR is God's engine. So, which I feel like
we all have our different beliefs. Like like I know my Lord's engine is the Coyote, so it's all good.
Yeah, I still think just drop a Cummins in pretty much everything. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. There's so many different types of Cummins out there. It'll fit in whatever. They've got the new
like the 4BT.
Yeah, 4BT. I mean, they've got the new electronic injection 2.8 liter. I think it's a 2.8 liter.
I actually saw
Cummins as well.
Someone use that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a DeBoss Garage, another Canadian channel.
Yeah, I know Rich quite well, actually.
I like watching his stuff because it's super relatable, right? Everyone likes that kind of stuff, but he uncrated that 2.8 you were talking about, and it's going to do I'm really interested to see how they're going to tie all that together with that project.
Yeah, if you go back to one of the Audi episodes, I'm in that. There's a couple of ones that I've been in, so I've known Rich for.
Is he on the east side?
Yeah, he's in Ontario. He's outside. He's basically just outside Niagara Falls is kind of where he's at. So,
for some reason, I imagined on the left side.
The left side.
left coast.
Left coast. Oh, all right. So speaking of coastal, Clark Hatton. So I knew absolutely nothing about this kid, which I feel like is a bit of I feel like I'm missing out. But 14 years old, Northern Ireland. Yeah. Kid's been driving since he's 8. The town he's from is Carrickfergus, Ireland. Another really young Irish kid coming over doing nuts things. I don't know what they put in the water there, but geez, I think it's just imagine? Guinness. It's just Guinness. They start feeding kids Guinness at like 6. Yeah,
they're just filtering it in there. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being in like basically the top tier series of a whole different country at 14 years old. I mean, yeah, that's just as mind boggling.
Yeah,
I don't know what you were doing at 14, but it wasn't trying to make a race career.
No, I was probably just being a dickhead and doing stupid stuff. Let's be honest here.
I think I was playing Counter-Strike.
yeah, it would have been like what, Counter-Strike 1.6 or something too back then.
Oh yeah.
screw source, screw go. Yeah. Man, it's incredible to see like how young drivers are getting, how good they're getting this quick. I mean, there's so much information now that they can absorb it. And I think with sim drifting, it's just creating better drivers sooner, which, I mean, the biggest benefit is us. So we get to watch it. So he's driving M2, F22. So should be a wild setup, man. Pretty excited to see what he does.
That's a pretty new chassis. I'm not, forgive my ignorance on the BMW stuff. It basically ends at E46 is what I know. It's what? She says at F22?
Yeah, F22.
Okay. So that's should be a weapon then, eh?
Yeah, should be. Cool. All right. Cody Buchanan is the last, I guess the next one up. So 14th last year, much better year. Another Z. I mean, not that many Zs. I mean, I feel like we do have a good mix. I mean, we've had Alex Jaeger or Jaguar, obviously in a Z, but just another guy that kind of fits in similar to like an Austin Mata, been in the game for a little bit, just kind of waiting for a breakout weekend to really put his name on the map is what it feels like.
Yeah. Super humble dude too. And, obviously there can only be three on the podium, but you always hope that, there's just so many guys that you want to like see do well, but there's just not enough room.
Yeah. That's the tough part, especially with a roster of 40 plus drivers this year that that's,
good night.
That's, yeah, exactly. That's the hardest part about it is there's just so much going on that best of luck. I mean, you've got to be, I think consistency is really what it comes down to. So next up, Cole Richards. So having, I would say a breakout year last year is probably the best way to put it. Came fourth overall in the series, won in Englishtown and then had a really rough St. Louis afterwards. But phenomenal driver. Just I said it last year, but like Greg Bussell from Coro Works. As soon as we were in Atlanta, he like pulls me aside. He's like, watch this kid. And I'm like, okay. And I saw him do like his second practice run. I was like, oh, there is something here. Like you could just tell right away that the kid knew how to shred.
Yeah, he's also got a lot of heritage behind him too. Mm-hmm. So it's that's really cool to see even though there's like a huge generation gap, just that knowledge being passed down and that type of training, and it's showing that it's working. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like the coming out of the Coro Works camp, like there's so much information that they've got, and we talk a lot about infrastructure. They know how to put together a program. They're not missing anything. It's just there. It's just up to you to drive. Basically, is what it comes down to. Yeah. So, yeah, I expect to see Cole do really well, again this year, and I think potentially if he top 5 again or top 3 or whatever, we could see him make the jump into pro the year after. I have no doubts that if he has a good year this year, that he's ready to do so.
Yeah, because I mean, look at it's interesting. We talk about the weight of the Prospec rounds because he had one bad 0 in St. Louis, and that was probably the big bummer. you know, from being and he still got 4th. Just imagine, where he would have been.
Yeah, top 2 easily. I mean, not that I don't think he was close enough to really like knock Ben off of the lead that he got, but. Easily could have been top 3 without having one bad round. So
right, and that means getting a license too. That would have been the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Another driver that obviously had a rookie year last year, but driving, I think, probably almost more than any Prospec guy right now. I feel like him and Nate Chen are like the two that just drive consistently and all the time. Connor O'Sullivan. So 15th last year, we know he's got a good partnership, it looks like, with Hurst. We saw him do, the Super Drift as well, did pretty decent there, although had a pretty big shunt on day 1. But, good backing, good driving, great team. Like, he's,
Absolutely.
I think, just fighting nerves is what it seems like. Because other competitions he goes into, he just absolutely dominates, and then it just seems to be the Prospec, level is kind of catching his nerves a little bit. But phenomenal driver.
Yeah, that's half the battle is inside your own skull for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The battle between the ears, right? I think is, the 6 inches, the battle of 6 inches between the ears is kind of what it comes down to. So I think if he can get his nerves together, really he's got a podium at the end of the year. So that's at least how I see it. Another OG driver, Corey Talaska. So, he's been around for a minute, rough year last year, but I know he's had, back in the Pro 2 days, had a couple of really good seasons as well.
Yeah, I always root for him. He's one of those guys that's one thing that I'm sure you know already is that, as being the announcers, we get to judge without consequence. And so I can play favorites.
Yeah, a little bit. It is like, it's kind of, you don't want to give anybody like more airtime than anybody else, but like you can definitely be a little bit more open about, your likes and dislikes of drivers. Or if you just don't know the guy, it's or as well as the others, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think that's like such a good tip for like any driver. Like, hey, go make friends with the announcers. Like, go make friends with the photographers, and go make friends with the announcers. Because like, if they know you better, they're going to speak about you more. Because and on the photographer end, they're going to shoot you more, right? If they're a buddy, then you're gonna get more media out of it. So, not saying that like I need a bunch more friends, but yeah.
I was surprised at like how many people would message Jared and myself like during the show, be like, oh, little tidbits. I was like, oh, sweet, I got a little slip of the paper, for the headline there to, and it helps. So just keep doing that, people. It's great.
Yeah. It's a blessing and a curse. Cause in Long Beach, when the stream went down, my phone exploded. It was sitting on the table and it was just like vibrating across the table. To the point where I had to jump on my Instagram stories, but like, I know the stream is down. We are all aware. And like, you could just see the rain coming in sideways behind me.
Oh, were you not in the rain? Oh, boo.
Sorry.
My shelter was the parking garage.
You were okay. There was no tornado warnings. You survived.
Yeah, just tsunami.
That's it. Yeah, it's tidal wave coming down the street. It's like a bad horror movie.
Dude, it's like a wind tunnel there. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I don't envy you having to stand out on grid. That's for sure. So if it makes you feel better, I mean, like I said, back in the media days, I had to do the same thing. So I've had my fair share of. Yeah.
It's just like when I used to have to chase cones and stuff. I'm no longer hopping over walls like our other guys are doing now that are newer to the staff. So it all ebbs and flows.
Like I remember when I used to have to chase cones. Like now, you just stand there and.
I still do in Orlando because they're the closest one to the one inner clip. And when we did Prospec and Pro, man, that was a long weekend. Like I was basically limping at the end of the weekend on Saturday. But now that it's thankfully just Pro, it's a little lighter on my body.
And standing on the bank too doesn't help, right? Like that's hard on your hips and your back.
You got to like remember to like turn one way and then the other, because then your heels are like up and down, and just little things. Because if you're moving, it's actually easier on your body than just standing in one spot.
Yeah. So moving on to another rookie. I think I misspelled his name. I don't think his name is Cody, unless I could double check this.
It's Cody. That's how I looked up, because I'm friends with him on the book face.
Okay. It is Cody, or is it Cody?
I gotta assume it's Cody.
Yeah,
I mean, what?
I'm double checking my reference notes here. Let's just. No, I have Coty. Coty is what they had, at least in the document they sent me.
But is it? It's that's how it's spelled. But is that how it's pronounced?
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't tell.
I mean,
I like Coty.
Maybe it's just
unless it is Cody.
Can we phone a friend?
Can we? This is one of those where, like, the editor comes in, be like, okay, just to correct myself here.
Yeah.
But we talked about a bunch of vets coming in. This is,
this is the first one we're talking about.
Vets are taking over.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I know there's a few more. I definitely know there's a few more, but C6 Corvette. Yeah.
So he's got because I saw there, I was just, perusing his Facebook there, and got a note here. His crew chief I used to drive with in MDU in the Midwest Drift Union back in the day, and he's a good dude. He's got drifts a Corvette as well, I believe, but he used to have a LS turbo SC300 that was bananas. But yeah, so he's got a good little backbone there, and so I'm excited to see what he does with the Corvette. Corvettes are a blessing and a curse. I know my local friend Alex here I've seen his stages of his C6 build, and when it was stock, I was like, dang, I'm kind of envious here. But then when he's got to do certain things that I have to do on my cars, I was like, yeah, I don't envy a gear change or a clutch change or your oil. Keeping things cool was a big one for him, which he had to invest a lot to do. So I was like, it's a little bit of give and take with that chassis. So
yeah, that's the thing. There's really no perfect chassis. I mean, you can get close after a lot of work, but as you said, there's like that give and take, right? Like the LSs are mostly bulletproof and they're super easy to work on, and there's parts coming out the wazoo. Whereas, moving into a 5-liter, maybe there's benefits with that you don't get with an LS base. So
yeah, they're just like physically monsters.
Yeah.
The perfect chassis is Mustang, by the way.
Okay, got it. Yeah, perfect. Glad we cleared that up.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Another driver coming out of Lake Erie Speedway had a rough year last year, coming in 32nd, but Dan Malvazio, another BMW driver. He drove really well at Lake Erie. Had a rough time when he made the jump into Prospec. It's so tough. I mean, to be a rookie and have a good season is so rare. But I do know how he can drive as somebody who's watched him drive for a couple of years now and called his runs. It's just so different, especially when you let's say you run Lake Erie regularly and then you show up to Road Atlanta and you're like, oh, there's elevation here. Like that's not something I've had to work with before, or there's this or
it's
that.
So much fun though. Like have you ever you've heard of US Air where like Final Bout has their or Club FR has their Final Bout. The elevation there is like within the corner, but it's like shrunken down. It is one of the best drifting experiences. It's got to be like what Appalachia is like. I'd love to go back there because that was like my hometown track. It was like 2 hours from where I lived in Wisconsin before moving to Arizona, and there's nothing like it. It's the reason they call it the roller coaster love. So elevation change, you got to like. The only way to get good at it is experience it, because there's just no way to prepare yourself until you do it.
Yeah. I believe that. I got to do a ride along Laguna, and like my stomach just dropping out in the corkscrew is like, dude.
That's an event I think we did like what's that?
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say it's such a weird feeling for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you get that feeling, especially as a passenger. I'd get it too. Because I did get the Odie at Media Day, and that was crazy. It was weird because like it was so smooth. I'm like, it just felt like a faster drift car than what I'm used to driving. But it was that Laguna Seca. That's definitely one event that's like a goal for this year to drive at for sure. Yeah.
I am not experienced enough to even come close to driving at it, but I am happy to be a passenger princess and just go for the ride along, because holy, it was wild, absolutely wild. It'd be sick if FD ever did that, like going up, especially if we could do like going up. That would be wild. I mean, tough with the grandstands, but be a cool track for us to compete at. So first double duty driver here, Dmitry Brutsky. He talked, we did a quick interview on Bakersfield, where he talked about it, but I'm really curious to see. There was a lot of discussion about chassis and stuff. If he's got everything, within that chassis that'll meet all the Prospec regulations, pedal box, steering column, things like that. So, I don't remember honestly, if he's got stock pedals. I could probably go back and take a look, but that would be, or if he's got a second chassis that he's running to do it.
I thought it was a whole nother chassis, because I know that because if you don't want that penalty, if you're running a column or not factory pedals, because that's points. And I know
is that what it works out to be?
Yeah. So there's a few drivers that when they implemented that rule, they had time to prepare or change their car. They just took the hit. I don't want to name names, but that's what they did, because they're too invested in their build, and it was already built prior to the rules. So it is what it was. So
Do you know?
Yeah.
Do you know how many points it is? I didn't realize it was a points hit.
yeah, I can't remember. It was per round. I know that it was like either Kevin probably kill me, but maybe it was 10 points. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay.
That might be
It's
high.
enough.
I mean, that sounds conservative, but yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. That's I was not even aware of that. So I mean, but for somebody who's just trying to get seat time, like, you know, if we're not, I mean, unless he's trying to win.
Yeah, because
win another.
yeah, one of those
championship.
drivers, I don't think made it to every round either. So it was, not too detrimental to their championship run. So it, it's all
Yeah.
good.
Moving on to another rookie, Douglas Stubstad. What a
DJ.
solid DJ Stubstad.
Yeah. Oh, I looked up his name. I was like, it was his dad. I was like, oh, he was mentioning DJ because he's probably a Douglas Jr. And I was like, oh, I'm already friends with him. So that's why I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, another Z chassis, push rods and with boost putting down its throat. And yeah, be interesting to see.
Was he the one who bought Literal's old chassis?
Ooh,
Is that the same guy? I think he
know.
bought Literal's old Z, if I'm not mistaken.
I can't remember if someone did or not.
I know somebody hit me up about it, but I got to take a look at that. Yeah. I'm fairly certain he like messaged me about it. He's like, yeah, I bought this. I was like, oh shit, that's cool. But if it's the same guy I'm thinking of, I should look this up. Real time. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. He's got the mullet, the glasses. Yeah. Same guy. Huh. Interesting. So that chassis is making it. That chassis has been around for a hot minute, like 2018, 2019.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, when because that was speaking of double duty. Was Literal doing that, but he had two chassis. I believe he used when he did that.
Yeah, I think I can't remember if he had like the S chassis and the Z going when he did it, but yeah. Well, I mean, welcome back the old Literal chassis for Mr. DJ, not Douglas. I think we just call him Douglas. Yeah.
Dougie.
Funny enough, weird side tangent. Calling somebody a Dougie was an insult in the town I grew up in. Like that was like what you would call somebody if like you were trying to insult you. You call them a Dougie. So it's like a way throwback to like high school. Yeah. I don't even know where
in Australia you call him a bogan. You're being a real bogan.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, pretty similar. It's a Canadian version of a bogan. All right. Dustin Miles.
Another like Prospec 2 vet.
Yeah. Another guy that's just been around for a hot minute. So I think I forgot to put in his how he did last year. I could look it up in real time though. But Miles of Styles, I mean, he took last year off and then he was around the year before. Is that what I'm thinking?
He was.
Oh no, you're right.
Like
12.
Anyway, yeah, because
I got him in for 12.
I remember he went from a 1 to 2J because we were talking about that more. He liked that the torque out of the more extra cubes and So it's always he's kind of like he's keeping the OG Japanese and the Prospec grid, if you will. Like it's always low. It's always looking good. A lot of canards. So always a pleasure to see him compete too.
Lots of arrow that flies off, and then you've got active arrow.
Game. Foxes are good for that.
Just losing parts.
The hatches
moving on.
Decided like.
Oh yeah. The actual latch mechanism is super weak in those too, right? Like it's just like one good pump and they pop out.
Even with the roll cage, you'd think it would just stay put, but then all of a sudden I have a 6-foot spoiler in there.
I wonder how long it's going to be until we actually have active arrow in FD, like, or it's just like directing smoke, like it's like trying to push it in one direction.
Probably after our lifetime.
Hope I get to see it before I kick the bucket, but hey, you never know. Moving on, Eric Medici, Brazilian driver. 33rd last year, rough go, but I mean, another BRZ. I mean, 8.6. I mean, this is the last of the BRZs. I know they're all the same. The 8.6 BRZ. What was the
Yeah, what's
The
left?
other
Because
chassis
Jared and I
from that.
coined like a way to just, it was like a BR86 was how we call all of them because they're all the same thing anyway, especially when you get into this level. That's, they're not going to have that boxer engine or anything anymore. So
Yeah.
just call it a BR86.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Eric, a couple years in, I mean, just rough season last year is really what it comes down to. So, but you
Can't win them all.
Keep pushing. No, you just keep pushing ahead, man. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. To finish first you have to finish, and a lot of guys drop out. So you gotta keep going. Speaking of keeping going, Farouk Hugwai, guy that drove pro for a bit, decided to step back, do some more Prospec driving at this point. Super active in the drifting community, obviously out in
SoCal.
Yes, I was going to say Northern California, but it's not.
Northern
Mid California? Mid?
Sonoma.
Is there?
Is it Sonoma?
Sonoma.
Drift?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the biggest smiles on the grid for sure. That guy's always a pleasure to see.
Yeah. Farouk's really good. He's one of the guys that, like, if you're walking by him, he'll like just stop to make sure that he like gets to say hi and gets like a word in real quick.
Oh,
yeah,
we'll fix that.
It's just hitting the equipment, it's breaking the equipment. It's not in the budget, man.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, I've always gotten along really well with Farouk, and he's one of the guys I'd love to get on with the standalone episode, just because he's been in the game for a long time and has done so much that I think it'd be kind of cool to really pick his brain and learn a little bit more about him. I don't know a ton.
I like to. It was interesting seeing him on the Hyperdrive show, and I never have found the opportunity to ask him more about that because there was things that went on during the show that we got to see, and I'd like to see like his point of his side of things. But yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's I still remember it was like he was trying to like build a BMW one year and had like a whole bunch of issues and like some weird sponsorship things that went with it, and like had like the wheels spaced out like crazy.
Oh,
it was
the wheel
like,
spacers.
It looked sick though. Yeah, dude, the body kit was nuts though, but like obviously the wheels that he wanted to have on it weren't ready, so he just ran like a stack of spacers on it, or that blowing up for a while. But yeah, that body kit was wild on that BMW. It would have been cool to see it done.
Any press is good press. Is that what they say?
I think so. I mean, I'm sure there's a few people you could ask about that may not agree with you, but
yeah.
Look, we all enjoy wearing FD merch. I know I do. If I am not wearing a completely black outfit minus this hat that has about 100 different names for the color, teal, seafoam, whatever you want to call it. But when I'm not wearing this, what I got on? FD merch, of course. So head over to shopfd.com, use the coupon code podcast24, just the numbers. Don't spell it all out. Save yourself 20%. So that is shopfd.com. Get yourself some awesome merch, maybe a skateboard deck, maybe, can we bring bucket hats back? Let's do bucket hats. Everyone go get a bucket hat. And if you do, let me know. And let me know that you save 20% by using podcast24 at checkout. Driver that changed chassis and drove phenomenally with it. Jeff Donati, 5th last year. So coming out of an S chassis, moving into the BMW, Tuner Tools. Brian's been a buddy of mine for years, the owner of Tuner Tools. But yeah, that E46, so good to see. Although I think he took like a big hit in Atlanta, like one of the rounds. I remember taking a big hit.
Yeah, we were talking about that wall in Atlanta. That was the one. That was the worst one last year by far. He pushed the tower in the front pretty good. But man, he's also like you can say one of the nicest guys about a lot of people, but he's up there as far as because he was an MDU driver as well. I think the one round I drove an MDU, he was competing in, and I think he won or got podium at least. But he's I think still in the middle, or not. Hopefully he's done. But I've been watching his tear down in his garage of his car, and he's kind of explaining things to people and whatnot. And super cool dude. He's definitely with the break that he took when he was in Pro 2. It's like a new Jeff. He's like, I feel like he's matured a little bit, even though that sounds like he was immature, but he's like, I don't know, he's just aged well.
He's aged well. Yeah. Which is funny because like I feel like he still looks like he's in his mid-20s when you chat with him. But we talked about this with another driver, but he like calmed down and just like realized that like because I feel like in Pro-Am, you have to drive really, like you have to drive really, really hard. You obviously have to be consistent, but that mentality of like, oh, I need to drive hard to do well, because I feel like in Pro-Am, guys just want to blow each other like out of the water constantly. And that's like, if you watch a lot of Pro-Am events, that seems to be kind of what ends up happening, is guys just like drag racing on other cars.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But that does not work in Prospec, because everybody can do that. So you have to dial back a bit and then be more consistent, because everybody's showing up with it. Like it's one of those, you might have been the best in Pro-Am, but now you're like every other driver in Prospec, right? Like you can,
it's like small fish,
everybody
big
there.
pond.
Yeah. Everybody who's in Prospec was the best in Pro-Am. So you can't drive with the same mentality. You have to go back to like, okay, I need to be consistent now. I can't just drag race everybody and try and win that way. It's just, it doesn't work that. So I feel like Jeff taking that time off more or less realized that, and we saw the consistency out of him, and that's what took him to 5th last year.
Yeah, and I feel he didn't take a break from driving at all either. I still saw him out there ripping and just kind of doing his own thing, and I think that helped him just kind of soothe the waves.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. Just like calm the storm a little bit and then come back and be a little bit more consistent. So, speaking of OG drivers, Hooman Rahimi, probably the funniest guy on the grid. Like if you're having a rough day,
definitely.
just go chat with Hooman for a little bit, because he's going to get you laughing in absolutely no time.
Challenge him in a foot race.
Shockingly fast. But yeah, Hooman, absolutely hilarious. I mean, I've known the guy forever, and just funny. Great liveries too. He always does something neat with it. Like the little bits of plaid that he like integrates into it now, like the baby blue and plaid is just something so different than anybody else is doing on grid. And he got the holy grail of sponsorships with Harbor
great.
Freight. Yeah.
Did he? Ooh, that's yeah, I mean, who doesn't run that stuff in there when they're starting out drifting, and you put that in the trailer? Whew.
Yeah.
That's the move.
So, yeah. Moving on to Jack Davis. So 6th last year, a guy that did really well coming out of Pro-Am, jumps, I believe last year was his rookie year in Prospec. Did great. Older chassis with an E36. It's funny that, now we're looking at E36. E36 is kind of the same way we look at like an S13, but very, very consistent driver. The new livery looked really good. Baby blue and yellow. I didn't think that was a combo. I mean, Hooman has kind of a similar color combo, but looks really good. A driver I've chatted with. He's one of those guys that if he's at an event that I'm at, he will make time to come up and like hang out and say hi and update me on things, which is, I think, when we talk about like the business of drifting, he's a driver that's done really well in that and has pushed his program ahead really quickly by kind of knowing the ins and outs of how to wheel and deal, if you will.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be one of those teams and driver that the consistency is going to pay off. It might be a little longer road, but it's going to be good for him. Yeah,
I agree. I still think he's got a little bit of maturity in driving that he's got left to do, but very much well on his way to being a top 3 driver. And then we'll see where he goes from there. All right, on to another rookie. So Jace Habich. I don't know. You give it. You got to say his name more than I do.
Cabbage. It's cabbage. Hot cabbage.
Jace Cabbage. Jace Cabbage. Yeah, the car name listed in his V2, the Resurrection. So it sounds very, very movie-esque.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like almost like Discount Terminator. That's thing. So.
Based out of Seattle, so 2023 Spec D champ. So comes off of obviously doing quite well in a pretty competitive series.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I do think if you're going to make the jump from Prospec to Pro-Am, or from Pro-Am to Prospec, you've got to be winning those series. Like really, like you got to kind of dominate. I think it was I think it was Nick Swan that says, like, if you can't win at that time Pro 2, you shouldn't make the jump to Pro. And I feel like Pro Am to Pro Spec is kind of similar to that. Like, if you don't dominate that series, the jump's going to be really tough for you.
Yeah, and it's, we could talk about logistics all day and how that's almost a bigger part than just winning the series is knowing what it takes to travel, because that's probably one of the biggest things and costs, obviously, for competing in Prospec.
Well, we see a lot of guys, just guys and girls drop out because of the logistics and the cost of logistics, and that's it. Not that they're not a good driver, not that they don't have a good chassis. Right. It's just, like, honestly, if you don't have 50 grand, you shouldn't be trying to do Prospec. That's kind of how I look at it. Oh,
that's a good baseline, I would say.
Yeah, you can do it for less. I know guys have done it for significantly less, but if you want longevity in the sport, put aside $50,000 because that's what it's going to cost. So,
absolutely.
Sorry. Yeah, it's very easy to say. Obviously tough to do. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have 50 grand sitting in the bank.
I mean, not that I want to spend 50 grand in the bank.
Come on, you never thought about running, Prospec and just seeing what you could do?
People ask me that, but it's like, I like this side of things. It's a lot less stressful, and I don't feel as a driver I'm there anyway either. So it'd be a waste of money if I just decided to do Prospec next year or something. And besides, I'd have to really make even better friends with Kevin to petition in. But it's not like there'd be any favoritism there or anything. But it's something that used to be in the back of my mind. Like when I'm watching Pro or Prospec and Pro 2 back in the day, I'm always imagining what they're doing and be like, oh, that'd be cool if I could do that. But that want has definitely been stifled the more that I see like what goes on behind the scenes. It's just, I'm not competitive enough in that regard as far as drifting goes.
Yeah, and
because you gotta want it. You gotta want it.
That's something I came to terms with a long time ago. I mean, honestly, just like working with Riley back in the day. That's when I realized like I couldn't do it, because like I just saw the way he was and like how much he wanted it. And I'm like, I don't want it that way. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
Like I would love to want it that way, but I don't. Honestly, like, business has been the only thing that I've been like, oh, like this is something I'm willing to put everything into. Like that's the only thing that I've ever had that feeling of like, oh, I will go 3 days without sleep. I will live on coffee. I will do everything in my power to be successful in business. That's the only thing that's, even hockey. I don't have that same feeling, but
yeah, I can definitely level with you there. Cause there's, we both have families now and mine's a little newer, but there's, that regard. And I feel like there's, if I want to be known for drifting, there's other ways to be known without driving in the series with FD. I mean, obviously I'm, at the start line and co-commentating in Prospec, which is, I think it's great. But as far as like drifting, to be known for that, there's other avenues that I could take if I wanted to be known as like a professional drifter. I mean, what defines a professional drifter, or just anybody that's called a professional? You get paid to drift, right? So, it'd be cool to like travel and do demos and stuff. But that's also, we got a lot of plans going on. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the upside is you and I are making money in drifting as opposed to spending boatloads of money in drifting, right? Like that's the trade-off.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Moving on to another young gun, Jaden Monterana. I keep wanting to like go like super deep French accent with it, which is like, because I mean that's really what the last name is. But 17th last year, a lot of talk about this kid. Obviously being very young. I mean, an immense amount of pressure. I feel like we held him to an incredibly high standard last year, but I would argue he hit that standard especially in a vehicle that was not built for the level of driving he was at. And by the time he got into the pro level car, I mean, he only ran 1 or 2 events with it. So it'll be interesting to see how he does now that he's had more seat time in that pro. Basically, that it's a pro build. For all intents and purposes.
I couldn't have commended him enough on what he did with that first chassis he used in the beginning of last year, especially in Atlanta. You could just tell it might not be obvious to like the general fan, but just how much harder he had to drive it, how many more clutch kicks he had to accomplish the same thing, and he was keeping up with guys with 150% more horsepower than him. Yeah. And so just hats off to him for sure on being able to do that and pulling his fire suppression when he needed to, because that was, I don't know if you know what happened. It was during practice in Atlanta. He had a little oopsie, but yeah. So
yeah, it's I mean, just a ton of pressure on him as a person, but yeah, the younger we're starting,
he's not the youngest though. So
yeah, exactly. That pressure's gone. Now we get to talk about how young another driver is as opposed to him. So maybe that's the benefit, is that a little bit of that pressure is gone now. So could he still become? No, I don't think he could still become the youngest pro driver. But whatever. Just let the kid drive. Just let him drive. Yeah. No more like competition, race to the youngest. Like let's just let the kid
just drive the car, man.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to another rookie and another vet, Josh Stewart. So Stewart Fam Drifting Corvette. Dad also a driver, which is cool. Love seeing when the whole family gets involved with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's another driver at a hot pit.
You don't see that too often.
Yeah. No, I think we're going to see it more and more. Like, especially as a lot of these drivers get older and have kids and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it'd be cool to potentially see like Turk and his kids driving, driving at the same level.
Yeah, his son and my son are all around the same age, so I would love to drive with my son someday if he was so obliged.
Yeah, it would be cool. But yeah, I watched a couple of like highlights. Obviously, I mean, talented, making his way into this. The car looks really good. Built well. So. But it's tough, like we said. Just whenever you get a rookie coming in, it's such a rude awakening to show up and be like, "Hey, you're gonna drive 5 stories straight down and then aim your car at a pile of gravel that you can't get yourself out of." So, good luck, and that's your first round.
We'll get you out of there.
Yeah. Just don't hold up the show too much. You don't want to upset Andy Luck. That's at the end of the day. That's the main goal. Don't piss off Andy Luck, and you're gonna have a long career in drifting.
Yep, that is very, very factual.
Yes. Okay, moving on to, I wouldn't say like OG driver, but been around for a little bit. Joshua Love, 9th last season. Great year for him. I will say, looking at his socials, so 17 days from the time of recording, so what, about 20 days from the time of this, his car was not together at all. So...
Oh no.
Yeah. He was making jokes in the comments about it, but I mean, you could put a car together in 20 days and have it to Atlanta. That's not a big deal.
But yeah. I mean, if it's the same car, they get the recipe, right? So they can probably, if they took good notes on what alignments worked for that track, because he was a pro driver at one point and he's kind of pedaled back, and so I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, him and Thorne basically made the switch when Thorne jumped up. He decided to come back. They're obviously good buddies, and both of them with ASM. So yeah, great guy as well. I mean, I hung out with them. They were in the pits next to Travis Reeder when I was doing my ride along last year in Utah, and we were just like kind of hanging out and shooting the shit, and just a good group of people, and good driver. Similar, very very smiley. Always laughing, so hopefully he can keep that smile and, do better than 9th.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Up next, Justin Chestnut, which I just want to call him Joey Chestnut. I don't know why. I feel like Joey would be better than Justin.
Oh no.
Rough year last year, 37th. So definitely near the bottom, rough, but, Yeah, I when I was going through his socials, the biggest thing I noticed is the size of the motorhome he's bringing. Or like, I think the dude's just ready to live on the road.
That's the note you put in there was big.
That's a big motorhome.
That's the note.
Bro, it's huge. It's gigantic.
It must be big to put that in there.
Dude, it's like you can go check it out. But yeah, if anybody's
Are you living in that thing, Justin?
Socials, yeah, like, are you just staying in it all year? That'd be cool. Can you imagine just like a full 6 months of just living in a motorhome and going drifting? I mean, Zendara Kennedy, which we'll get to, that's basically her life. But I mean, if you could do it, why not, right? Like,
you have piqued my interest.
Are you going to check out his socials right now? Wait till you see.
Yeah, I know how deep I got to go, but
it's not far. It's like, I think it's like it was him saying he was heading to Atlanta, so it's not far back. But yeah,
boy. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a unit, huh?
I've just seen memes and stuff. No, okay. No, that's, well, Derek Madison. I'll find it later. I'll check it out. You just shared Madison's woes. I mean, we're talking about the trials and tribulations of traveling, the race series.
Trial by fire.
Boy, is Madison going through it. And that guy, he has the worst luck. We always talk about that between the staff. He's like, I don't know what it is. It's just that Madison luck. He just can't break his curse.
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, hey, if we want to do a fun transition, one of the teams that helped Derek Madison out was M-Spec, which leads us to our next driver, which is Casey Cole, which is arguably the most NASCAR name on grid. I feel like Casey Cole could easily be a NASCAR name without any stretch of the imagination.
It's pretty much the recipe that is 2 first names. And maybe sneak in a junior there.
Yeah. Yeah. Casey Cole Jr. would be probably the most. And it's always like, even like Mark Martin or Jimmy Johnson, like it's got to be, the same letters. So it works so well. Oh, yeah. If Casey Cole turns out to be a junior, that is the most race car name ever created. I can't think of anything better. Did you get a chance to like look at the car he built for Stookie? Like, did you get like good eyes on that car? I
have dubbed that thing the White Knight. I think.
Dude, I get chills
it is gorgeous, and just how they the little attention to detail. And one that has nothing to do with drifting. Well, I guess it does if we find ourselves in weather. Is they found heated windshields for this S15.
Yeah, which he said was cheaper than getting an OEM replacement, which I thought was wild.
Yeah, he was like, it was like $200. Someplace somewhere had 2 of them, so they bought them. And it was just so interesting how, because usually like the rear windshield is, you see all the lines and stuff, but the thing has like these very faint squiggly lines, like hundreds of them going through the windshield vertically, and you can't see it unless you're like right on top of it. And I'm like, yeah, just a thing to, defog it when it's hotter in the cabin and it's like raining or cold outside. And it's like, right on, dude. I love it.
I do think Casey is like kind of the Steph Papadakis of this generation of driver. Like when we talk about, I know that's high praise. I know that's a big thing to say, but like,
he's into everything on the car, like whether it's tuning, electrical, chassis setup. I can see that. I can get on board because there's not much he doesn't know about the cars and their function that I can think of.
Well, and I think that's his biggest blessing and his biggest curse. Like when I talked to him in Irwindale last year, he basically he had a huge hit in Atlanta, which was a really weird situation. I can't remember who the driver was that hit him, but the driver basically lost their brakes and just smoked him, and they went into the kitty litter and hit. I mean, it messed up his car pretty bad. But he told me that his focus was on Stookie's car, not on his own. Like he repaired it to the point he needed to repair it. They went out and drove. The car wasn't aligned well. He tried to drive around it, had a terrible year. But he was so focused on making Stookie's car perfect and building the new chassis that he just didn't care about his own program, which I'm sure he cared about it. Like, I think that's maybe a little strong, but like his focus was on making sure Stookie was set up for the year and put his own program kind of in the back burner to make sure of that. So like, that's, as a builder or team manager, I don't know what his official role is with Stookie, but like, very noble of him. But the hard part is like his own program suffered because of that. So
yeah, and I think, like I've always told people, like half the fun for drifting me is the building. Like when I get to put something together and I know the ins and outs of it. And so I don't have any weird question marks in my head or doubts, you know, when I'm sending it sideways and pitching it, you know, at 60, 70 miles an hour. But that's kind of, I think his real passion is building the cars. And, but I also do know that right before he got into Prospec, a few years ago, he's like, I want to make waves. And, so the passion's definitely there for driving too. I know he wants to be, you know, one of the best out there for sure.
Yeah, I think he just wants to, he wants to be up in pro. He wants to be competing with Stuckey, and I think they all do. I don't know of anybody really that's in Prospec that's not gunning for pro. So,
and that pro car is super light too, which is a really refreshing mentality or strategy. So they still run the 255 because the car is light enough. So that they're kind of like, well, if it's light and I hit a heavy car, it's not going to disrupt them as much. But I guess the opposite, if they hit me, then I'm really going to go for a ride if it's a good enough whack. Yeah,
it's an interesting, I guess, concept because we've moved to like big tires and all that stuff now, like a lot of weight and big tire, but they went the complete opposite direction. And I'm excited to see how it works out for them. Moving on to I know Kelsey Rawlings. So she's been around for a hot minute in FD, always super close to getting her pro license. Like, last year, 20th, I know she's had years where it's done better. I feel like she's always one mechanical issue that's holding her back from something. And it's been a bunch of different stuff over the years. So, I know you're obviously a fan because running some Mustang engines, but which the car sounds phenomenal. Like,
you think so?
You don't like it?
I'll tell you, Kelsey, you got to work on that. It's the most LS sounding Coyote I've ever heard.
Maybe that's why I like it.
Oh no, it's just it's so hard because there's to stuff that big engine in that little car, and the exhaust routing is just probably a nightmare. And the more 90s and bends you have, it's just going to make it crackle. And I know that firsthand. I've had the Fusion, the first iteration exhaust sounded like absolute garbage. So I had I know it's hard to make those engines sound good, and I'm surprised you think it did sound good.
I like it, man.
No.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying though, that like that low rumble, like the kind of like that dual overhead cam sound that you get out of those 5 liters is different. But I understand what you're saying. Like with all the restrictions and everything else, you change the tone and it becomes very different very quick.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because you talk about her mechanical mishaps, and unfortunately, like they had a new motor in Atlanta for last year, and I think a timing chain broke or something, and then here we go, and then we had to they had to put in the old motor from last year. Yeah,
it's rough, man. It's just another driver that's had just a series of bad luck. Is really what it comes down to. So, y'all good? You getting sorted over there?
Yeah, you think I clamped that thing on tight enough, but I think like the little rubber booty is slipping in the clamp.
Yeah, we spend the money on the mic, not on the rigging.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to who I feel like might end up becoming like a fan favorite, Lee Yarwood. So RB powered E92, known YouTuber coming out of the LZ circle, which I think is such a. I saw him drive a bunch at the World Tour. Great driver, super funny guy, tons of energy.
Yeah,
but the pressure that comes with being kind of known before you make the jump into pro or Prospec. Yeah, like that's tough. To a more extreme extent, like look at, Adam, right? Like that's somebody who was incredibly famous and then had so much pressure coming into it. So that I feel like that's going to be the hardest part with it. But what I like is that his like media game is on point. So we're going to be able to follow that journey, really easily. Like, there's going to be good content that comes from it. And that's the part I'm kind of the most excited about when we have YouTubers per se that come in and start competing.
Yeah, I'm not as intimate with him as you are, but I catch that vibe that he is really fun loving.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, RB, I mean, same thing. Like as much as people, kind of, talk down on the RB, I mean, he's done well with it. And it's just same thing. It's a different sounding engine on grid. And I think maybe not trying to wind it up the same way that Literal does, keep it sub 800 horsepower. Hopefully he doesn't run into.
Probably has still an iron block.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I know those engines are good up until like 600, and then 6 to 8, like there's a lot of things you got to watch out for. And then above 8, it's just a whole other can of worms. So maybe if he keeps it in that 6 to 8 area, that's what needs to happen and keep the consistency.
And that's all you need for Prospec.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving into another vet.
Just reset this quick here.
Just hang on to it. You could just hold it. You could just,
like a Ricky Bobby.
Hey, God, I don't know what to do with my hands. Louise Lands, Zek Nova Corvette. Sick livery. Love the basically. I don't know what you call this, like the comic book style that people are doing right now, with like the kind of like
with like the
Sharpie
is around the body lines and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. 888, which is kind of cool number wise. 2023 USDC Formula Drift Pro-Am champion, so another Pro-Am champ coming in, so some high praise there. But yeah, another vet, obviously knowing what's going on. I think the only kind of interesting part is going to be, I believe he's a Zek Nova dealer. So then moving from that tire onto the GTs, like, that's something, obviously we level the playing field by everybody running the same tire. But if you won a championship on one tire and now you're running another one, that provides a lot of interest because it's different. You've built a car around a tire. Now you're running something that's different. Really curious to see how that plays out for him. Yeah,
I mean, if you do your due diligence and do your testing, shouldn't be a problem. But
shouldn't be.
Not everybody has that time.
That is a solid point. So, but yeah, another rookie coming in and see how things go. Another rookie, another vet. We're gonna run out of Corvettes.
Yeah, is that more? That's got to be more than on one hand that you count how many Corvettes we have.
Yeah, I think so. Should do like a little stats at the end. What we got total. Not a rookie. Margaritas Katsanidis, the Greek doctor, LS doctor.
Margaritas.
That's
We'll just. So he. I made the mistake of calling his engine supercharged last year. He's like, it's not supercharged. It's got nitrous. I was like, I just assumed all you guys used boost, but so yeah, that's just my one little hot take. I love his personality. He's always big smiles. The big Greek. I'm part Greek too, so I can level with him there. And he's a super cool dude. And kind of one of those. I wouldn't say sleeper cell because he's got that persona going on with the ambulance and the doctor thing. So. If he doesn't win around the podium, he definitely wins like the crowd a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah,
which arguably that's the harder thing to win, right? Is getting that popularity. Because here's the thing: you win the crowd, you get the popularity. That's going to lead to more sponsorships, which then leads to more funding, which means to more driving, better driving, and then moving on. I mean, in my opinion, if you're going to focus on something, it should be the content and the partnership side of things, and then the driving becomes easier. At least in my opinion. Maybe I'm a little backwards on that, but yeah.
Well, yeah,
if you got a shtick,
you set up your program fine.
Yeah.
yeah. If you set up your program right and you have a lot of people backing, that's just one less thing to worry about when the lights go out at the line.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not thinking about money, all you're thinking about is winning.
Yeah.
Driver been around for a bit as well. Another Mustang guy. Seeing more of them. Matthew Bystrap.
Making the jump.
Yeah.
Because he was in an S13 hatch for the longest time, and he's had a couple of good wrecks, I think, that kept him from kind of let himself shine there. So I'm really obviously Mustang, so I'm going to have my eye on and see how he does and see his setup, maybe take some notes. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the change. I think it's going to be good refresh for him.
Yeah, we saw with Turk when he had that big hit in Long Beach, when he moved on to like Atlanta and Orlando, it did incredible, and it was like talking to him about it, he's like, yeah, that old chassis was just so beat up that like everything in the chassis moved. And he's like, you're like driving with slack in the car. So I think moving to any fresh chassis, especially if one that's had a bunch of hits, I think slack is the only way I can put it, right? Like it's, the chassis like, not moving on you is huge.
Yeah. It's like you need a sturdy canvas to paint a good picture.
Ooh, I like that. I like it. Moving on to another driver that drives a ton, Nate Shen. Obviously, I had him on the show a little while ago, but 8th last year. So, within striking distance, if you will, of getting his pro license. And he seems like the kind of driver that the moment he gets his pro license, he's making the jump. Driving constantly. It feels like it's like work, drive, and that's basically it. Won at the Gambler, which is that is not an easy event to win. Just always a busy guy, very business minded, and puts a lot of focus on that part of his career, if you will. And I do think it leads to having a good program on the actual driving side of things.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like you mentioned, LZ he's a very smart businessman, and it translates into having a good. But basically, racing is a business. Like you've always talked about that, right? If you don't treat it as such, it's probably not going to set yourself up for the greatest success.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and he's almost more focused on the business side than he is on some of the driving side, but obviously driving an absolute ton. So I do think he's going to have a good year. I mean, I really do. It seems to be kind of all aligning, especially with that new S-Tech sponsorship that came in. So we shall see. Next up, Nick Jimenez. That I feel like I'm overthinking this, but yeah, Jimenez, another rookie.
If it's if it's the like Spanish phonetics, it's Jimenez, but could be wrong. It's probably we'll get a hold of him.
We'll get a hold of him. Get him on. Yeah. Crude with M-Spec, another guy that's been around for a little bit, more on the back end of things. Super interesting to see.
Yeah, that's right.
I anytime that I see a driver that's done a bunch of work behind the scenes in high level drifting, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that things are going to go well. Competed in full lock, did well there. So, I mean, up in that, what is it, like the Kansas area? Is that whole central part of the U.S., the flyover states?
I would have thought.
Yeah. And then engine-wise, we were like question mark 1J, weren't sure.
Yeah, the one post I saw, I was like, all right, that's I don't see many. How many Z's do we got that have a a JZ in them? They're usually LS is stuffed in there, so it's a good refreshing take on the powertrain. So yeah, I like the Felgren like livery. It's not exactly like it, but it's kind of like almost a nod to it without maybe getting trademarked or whatever.
Yeah,
copyright.
Just riding the line, right? Just super close. But yeah, no, it's sick livery. I think anytime that somebody obviously puts their time into putting together a good livery, like I'm always happy with it. It's like, why not, right? You've got one shot to make something cool, so why not do it?
Yeah, it's just an extension of your personality, which, mine is usually, I usually want things simple. So I've never like had flashy livery. So it's always, it's hard to like, I don't know, express myself in that way, but I like seeing how other guys do it. It usually translates in their personality.
Fair. Moving on to Rich Advani.
Advani, yeah.
Brutal with names. So I believe he took last year off. I don't see him listed last year.
We're gonna call that a rebuild year, or what is that, baseball, or what? Yeah. So they did show up in Atlanta and put one lap attempt in to qualify, but that was all we saw of Richard. But love the guy. He's done a bunch of when we do the FD demos. He's always showed up, put on a good show, and he did he's. He can definitely drive, and like you say, he hasn't been doing it very long, but he's, SoCal guy, so he's gotten help from a lot like Rome of the like, and so he's progressed very fast, and I think he's got what it's going to take as far as the crew, because he's got one of the biggest WiseFab advocates as his crew director on his side, so he's I'd keep an eye out for Richard this year for sure. He's gonna come out swinging.
Yeah. I didn't note in here. I saw him testing. It was either last year or the year before. Must have been the year before in New Jersey, and just running, the non-pro track, the Old Bridge track or whatever. I'm sure there's a proper name for it that I'm screwing up, and people are real mad. But dude, was shredding, and I was like, what is going on here? Like, it was one of those, the speed that he had out of the car was pro level. Because I was there with Simon and Jonathan, and they were both testing. I'm like, this guy is keeping up and crushing. So it was one of those things. Seeing, yeah.
You sure it was him driving?
I
only say that because that you remember that 360 video at Apple Valley Speedway of his 360 entry with the Corvette.
That was his car. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
And that was actually his crewmate. I think his name was Eric, or not Eric.
Oh, no,
I don't know, but it was actually him driving his car. So it was
oh, that's funny.
That's just a little nod at him, but I'm sure if they were testing there, it was him driving.
Yeah, I think he was. So, but I have seen moments of incredible skill that it's this, it's there. It's not just
absolutely
somebody who's showed up. So. No, a driver I personally am very excited to see back in the roster. I feel like
same.
I feel like you are as well. Sticky Ricky Hoffman, you just love this. Love him as a human being. Hung out with him on numerous occasions, and just very, very funny, and just always full of smiles, and just generally hilarious.
I agree.
Yeah. And you've got him listed as a wild card. I couldn't agree more.
Oh, for sure. He's been in the game before, and look what happened with Jeff Donati. He took a year off. I got to see a little bit of Ricky, in New Jersey last year, and so it's. I think he's got the itch, and let's see him scratch it.
Yeah, I chatted with him. I think at Grid Life in South Carolina, before the season started. And he talked about he was talking about taking the year off and just recovering, and I was like, oh, that's very smart of you. He's like, yeah, I need to find my love for competitive drifting again. I was like, oh, sick. But yeah, I'm happy he came back. It's always tough taking a year and, then having to come back. You got to reset everything, but it'll be good for him. Yeah. It'll be very good for him. Next up, Sam Megmami.
Very good.
E36. Yeah. Just what's your note here? I'll let you explain that one.
Oh, it's just that I'm fairly certain that he has a BMW engine in his ride. If not, it's Jay-Z. Yeah, because I know his 1 Series or whatever he brought over did have a BMW engine in it. I get him the wires crossed because there's so many bimmers out there that have Jay-Z's or LS's, but when you see a thoroughbred, you're like, this guy is a
purist,
loyal to the brand. Yeah, purist.
Yeah.
So that's what that note is there.
For the record, his note was thoroughbred. And I was like, what does that mean?
I'm an idiot.
So good. So it was like, I don't know what that means. I'm gonna let him explain that one. But yeah, Sam's, drives a ton. Another hot pit driver. I think his rookie season hit him hard, and it was just one of those oh wow, you could kind of see it in some of the hesitation in his driving. But obviously he can drive quite well. It's just just same thing, just nerves. And like, you know, I think when you're driving like a lot of these series, especially if you're running the same track, you kind of become comfortable with that same track. Whereas now you're running elevation, really tight tracks, really elevation in a different way when you go to Utah. Like it's just such a different mix that you know, you can dominate at one track, even if it's different layouts, but then you go to Utah and you're like, oh, I'm down 15% of horsepower. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah. If it's one thing I can give any of the rookies out there, if you're listening, loosen your cars up. Just add a few pounds in the tires, stiffen up the shocks, just get through the course. You're going to do well. Okay. Please just
loosen your
take
car
some grip
up,
out of the
please.
car.
That's it. Or at least start practice with a loose car. There's nothing more frustrating than watching practice in your first run. You're like, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to do with this car? Yeah.
Or they'll go like, they'll, roll through the gears, but then or they'll slow down before initiation. And then they're just trying to keep the thing lit. You hear 456,000 clutch kicks and
20 pounds. Start your car at least 20 pounds and then start to come down from there. And until
full stiff, add the bars. But the reason I say that, because Sam, we were giving him a hard time he did one of the demos at SEMA Fest, and it's like, Sam, loosen this car up. We're here to party. Let's go.
Just have a good time. All right. Speaking of party, Sean Illingworth. So 25th last year, tough go, great looking car. Works. I believe he works like within a wrap company, because he was, one of his posts was of Ryan Littoral's car. He was talking about like, I don't post my work often, and was talking about the wrap on Littoral's car, which is phenomenal. That livery.
Yeah, I like
super sick.
I like that iteration of it this year. It's also refreshing. It seems like the white was the theme this year, but he had more like dashes of white from what I remember of what it looks like, but just the blue and the color scheme with the Sunoco. It really hits hard.
And the high vis stuff is going to look really cool at nighttime too. Really glow. But Sean, it looks like sticking with the Z this year again. Great guy. I called him, I think I called him Mike Power Light. Light's
a compliment. It's better than like saying, oh, you're like the discount or the Wish version of something else.
Yeah, no.
So Light's good.
Light, exactly. But great guy. I chatted with him a fair bit last year, and just trying to find his own in Prospec and put it all together. I feel like a broken record talking about how tough it is, but a lot of guys come in with all these hopes and ambitions and get humbled very quickly. And I'm not saying that's what happened with Sean. It just came off great performances at a Prospec, and then it's like, oh, here you go. Or came at a Pro-Am and then comes in a Prospec, and it's like, well, welcome to the big show now. Like, have fun.
Yep.
So
for sure.
Next up, a driver I'm super pumped for anytime we get a fellow Canadian. Tommy Lemaire, absolute weapon coming out of Quebec. Did take a year off. Whoa, man. So to remind people, 2022 was in 9th, and 2021 came in 3rd. So like, the boy can shred.
Saying something.
That is saying something. Man.
Definitely a ripper. So it's going to be, it could be a bit of a disruptor to everybody's plans here.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody who has a program together in a place where if you wanted to make the jump to pro wouldn't be an issue. So, and I mean, technically could, because if he came 3rd in 2021, he would have his pro card.
I think he would have had,
apply.
I think it would have been this year, would have been the last year that he could
to do it?
have done pro. Yeah, because I think it's 2 years or 2 seasons.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked. But
yeah.
I'm sure you could
petition. There's always a petition. There's
always ways.
Many factors.
Many ways. So getting near the end here. Jeez, man. This is 46 drivers. This is
a journey.
Wild. Trevor Root. So E36, 19th last year, kind of another just like mid-pack driver, been around for a little bit. Took 3rd at the Gambler. Similar, like that's just an event that if you're doing well at, that's a great sign. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially because like it's run at the same track that we do a Prospec event at. and tire regulations are similar. So if you're going to do well there, you're going to do well. And looks like a full tear down and refresh. So, which is
Nice.
great. I mean, it's tough when you see guys like pull the car out and it's like, what'd you do? Just change the oil. It's like, okay. Like it's going to be round 1 or 2 where you're going to find out what you didn't do. But
That's a story of my drift car's life.
yeah. Any notes from you on Mr. Root?
Not much. I know he seemed to. I feel like he's starting to get some traction. And I know when he first entered the series, he had the potential to be a contender. I think he just was kind of a learning curve, as all rookie seasons are going to be. But I'm hopeful for him for sure. He's gonna. I think he's kind of one of those sleeper cells waiting to strike.
It's just waiting to happen any day now.
Yeah. Same thing with our next guy here.
Yeah.
Another E36.
Yeah. More E36s. The S13 of the German S13 is really
Yes,
what it is.
very well.
Tyler Foley. So 23rd last year, not a great season, but not terrible because I believe last year was his rookie year. So not too bad. Yeah, I did see a kind of a cool video he posted of the E85 energy drink. So I'm kind of curious. It's I don't see it like listed as one of his official sponsors, but kind of neat to see that. I don't know. Maybe that's what he was plugging for. Is just to try and get.
Is that made out of corn or?
It could be. Can you imagine corn? I mean,
corn-fed energy drink.
I mean, it could happen. Like.
I don't know the science behind it, but
yeah, I'm not a chemist.
More of a jest than anything.
Yeah, look like did an overall? We talked about a teardown and rebuild. Redid like Firewall was kind of the big post that I saw coming out of there. So another teardown and full rebuild. So feel like he's due for a couple of good events. That's for sure.
He's on the no grip life, so just put a little grip in it though. We don't want you to go full no grip.
Yeah, just a little bit of grip.
Kind of poke fun at that. Yeah, because it's like anybody that I always get into that kind of a side thing is people are like, oh, dude, what do you use for tires and stuff? And I was like, the opposite. You actually do need some rear grip. Otherwise your car's not going to propel. You're just going to be sitting there not having fun. You need to have some sort of control more than anything. But
yeah.
So
yeah. Always hard to explain to people who don't know drifting. And they're like, oh, they just slide around. I'm like, it's really not sliding. Like there's some sliding involved, but if you ever get into a high level drift car, you realize it's not.
Yeah. I had to, just this week, I had to explain it to some junior high kids. We did a career day at a local school, and some of them knew what drifting was and Formula Drift, which is really cool. But the ones that that group didn't, and explaining how all that works is really hard at their age level. But even it's the same thing for adults. They're like, huh? Like I'm sure, I don't know how involved your parents are, but like explaining that something to my dad is it's difficult because it's not racing and it's it's judged and you're out of control, but you're in control. Yeah. Always fun.
It took a bit to get my dad into it. I wouldn't say he's like a super active watcher now, but he'll definitely watch, and so we can have conversations about it. My mom's like a big fan of me. So whenever I'm doing, she's like, yeah, the drifting is awesome. I'm like, thanks mom. Appreciate it. So
yeah, I always shoot my dad the email link of the show, and so he can watch it whenever. And he's like, always kind of confused on what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's
tough,
all good.
especially if you come, my dad was a big NASCAR guy. So when you come from that to then come into drifting, it's definitely a big learning curve at that point. So cool. Last driver, another Canadian. We're coming. There's so many Canadians now. I love it. Zendara Kennedy. I feel like another driver that's always out there doing something, driving a ton. Obviously she had that post a couple of months ago about her both vehicle and home getting into a pretty bad wreck. So obviously everybody was okay, but I changed things up a little bit for her. So she's I called it last year, when we talked about dark horses. She had a rough year, but there was definitely signs. I think it was New Jersey in particular, where you can see it coming through. And I do think some of it is having her demo car be an LS and her competition car being a JZ. I think that's tough. That's really not the easiest way to be able to do both.
Especially if you go like when Forrest, he drove Matt Field's pro car back in December. I think you talked about that on the podcast, and he was like, "Yeah, it took a couple laps, and I got used to it." But I think if you're going the other direction, like she did, you're like probably hitting the go pedal and wondering what's happening below 3,000 RPMs when there's nothing, and then all of a sudden it comes alive. That's kind of the nature of those the JZs a little bit, from what I can tell, that they got to be lit off.
Yeah, I feel like it's easier to daily a JZ and move into an LS than it is to like daily an LS and move into a JZ. I do think that's much more difficult to do. So, but yeah, I do very much think that she's due, not just because she's a Canadian, but just I've seen signs of it, and I've seen her drive and demo stuff and have fun around there, and it's there, it's on tap. It's just a matter of putting it all together. But we'll see. I mean, definitely see. Like I said, rough rookie year, but hopefully she can get it all sorted. But that is our list. That is 46 drivers.
Oh my
Holy
goodness!
Cow. I know. We got through them all. So yeah, I
really
do.
A lot of battles. We get to.
Yeah, you got your work cut out for you. You're going to earn your paycheck on the Prospec weekends, man. Holy cow!
Yeah, because we got a top 32 seating, and then then the main show. So, but yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, because calling the battles out is definitely one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah,
as an announcer.
I love you. I love you in that seat, man. It's so great. And selfishly, I hope you and I can do more together. I mean, I had so much fun in Utah. Hopefully there's something we can work on for you and I. But
maybe Jared will show up late again or something.
I just get tired. I'll just get a text message to be like, I want to go grab some lunch. How about you drop up here for a little bit? So no, it was fun.
I'll be going golfing. It won't be lunch.
Yeah. The big bear. But I'm excited for Prospec. I'm happy that I get to, to be there and watch it and kind of not have to work it and just really consume it. Because as much as you consume it when you're announcing, there's so much going on that
it's easy to forget some stuff.
Yeah. Whereas if you can just sit and focus and you don't have Kemp in your head, yelling at you, telling you when the sponsor break is coming up.
When we'll be back.
It's a bit easier. For anybody, the reference. So Kemp is he's the director, right? I think is his official role.
Yeah.
So he's the guy who's talking to us while we're talking and telling us what's going on. And if your experience is like mine is, the first time it happens, you're like, okay, I have to try and think, talk, and listen at the same time without saying anything stupid or swearing. It's so hard to do.
Super fun. Yeah. Because my first time in the booth was Super Drift last year, and I was like, oh, this is, there's things going on this year, and you got Jared, and then you can talk to them with this button, and then you got to look at the drifting, and then there's live stream, and then replays. I'm like, holy shit snacks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's judges and Ryan's there, and he's giving you updates on stuff. And it's so much harder than I think anybody realizes. Just to even try and talk for 3 hours straight is not easy, let alone have to concentrate and not sound stupid. So. Yeah.
And in our position, we get to actually digest it a little bit before speaking. So, doing it live, which I've had to do a few times, during, did BMX racing announcing a long time ago, and calling it while the live action is happening is definitely, that's a talent. I'm not saying I'm very talented at it, but it's difficult.
It's definitely it's a different can of worms. That's for sure. So cool. Yeah. Well, I definitely want to have an episode just you and I where we're not going through a 45 driver list or 46 driver list. We can hang out and, get all the fun behind the scenes stuff on Mr. Sopa. But I do appreciate you
absolutely
jumping on and doing this is definitely fun, and it's cool to get the back and forth. And I feel much smarter about anything Ford now. Came out of it with a deeper love and appreciation for everything Mustang.
We've only just begun.
Oh, I know. Cool. For everybody
but, yeah.
listening at home, please check out Matt's socials as well. I'll make sure to drop those down in the little link thingy. I'll leave all the drivers' Instagrams as well. So please make sure to go follow them. Pick a driver out. Like I said, we'll do something. Probably people have to remind me, but jump in the comments. Let us know who you would like to see win. The first comment on YouTube, I think, is the best way to do it. So the first person on YouTube to guess the correct person to win Prospec, I will make sure to send a hat. Matt will get some Make It Modular stuff, and we'll put together a little prize pack for whoever that
stickers.
is and get that sent out to you.
Yeah.
But please support these drivers. Yeah. If you've made it this far, there's a good chance you're into Prospec anyways, but please support the drivers. If they have merch and you can afford it, please buy their merch, because that $20 shirt goes so much further than you can even imagine. And watch their YouTube videos and just support them. They need all the support they can get. So
Yeah, every
cool.
bit helps, for sure. I know.
Any final words from you, Mr. Sopa?
This is the part where we usually say send it, but that's not our role, right?
Yeah, I think we have to write him a check every time we say send it, so we should be careful of that.
Oh yeah, so we'll back to you. No, we'll see you. Back to you. You know the line. I can't. Even though I know you can swear, I have a hard time bring myself to do it. But so I'll see you guys. I guess when this drops, I'll probably be in the air, and I'll be flying out afternoon on Wednesday, which is also today. We're like living in the future right now, right?
We are. We're in the future.
So I'll see you guys on the start line for Pro and in the booth for Prospec. So I'm looking forward to it, because that's a really cool thing about Atlanta is you can hear, like in Long Beach, right? You can hear the engines, you can hear the clutch kicks, versus like in the booths in like St. Louis or Jersey, where you're in like the suites, you really don't have that organic feel. But Atlanta and the crowd, it's gonna be good. You can smell it. You can smell the tires and just like Mama Domino used to make, you know. So.
Yeah, it's easily top 2 events for me. It's it's great. If people ask me what event to go to, Atlanta is usually the one I tell them. It's great, but sick, dude. Well, I will. By the time this comes out, I will see you in a few hours. Same. But yeah, for everybody listening and watching at home, I really appreciate it, and hopefully you got a little bit more info and our unsolicited opinions on these drivers. And we'll catch everybody next week.